If you want to see where you are not free, find the things that you don't allow yourself to talk about. And that's the reason that I'm making this video here. Because as you can see from the title, it's about money. It's about an experience of mine that involves a lot of vulnerability. Like an open wound. In the winter of 2022, I started working with my first digital marketing client on a free trial period for 2 weeks. Okay? And this was a gym that I got in contact with through Facebook DMs. So I DM'd them offering my services in exchange for a testimonial. Right, my services for free in exchange for a nice testimonial if they did like my service, if they did enjoy working with me, they liked the results, okay? So this was my first client experience. And safe to say, I was way outside of my comfort zone. For sure. For sure. I was way outside of my comfort zone, and I felt myself during these 2 weeks of just rising to the occasion. And that was the type of energy. And in June 2023, I returned home from Spain to the United States, where I'm at now. And I've been working on this service ever since then. So since then, since returning home in the summer of 2023, I've made 30K, over 30K now, working on CJ Social, my digital marketing service. And I want to share with you 3 core lessons, 3 core takeaways that I want to cover here. And then another big thing that I want to speak about, another story that I want to tell after that. So I hope you stick with me here. This is nice. This is really nice. So the first core lesson, you want the identity shift. Okay, this is something that does not get talked about. If you go online and start to Google on YouTube, whatever it is, making money online, the identity shift will not be talked about because that is not a short-term thing. Okay? Now it can be, but it's not the sexy thing. Because it involves a little bit of time. But you want the identity shift. And a great example here is anyone can go start an LLC. Anyone can go start a business. Okay? But when you do that, you don't feel like a business owner. And still, I deal with a little bit of imposter syndrome around that, right? But you don't feel like a business owner right away. And the thing that I don't like is when starting a business, a lot of people start a business to say they have a business. And I don't like that. I don't like that. So anyone can start an LLC, but what you want is to become a business owner. So you want to become the person who does the thing. You want to become the person. You don't want the surface level papers and labels. No. You want to intrinsically know. You want to prove to yourself that you are that person. And that's the identity shift. And a shifting of identity can be pretty painful at times, in my experience. Pretty painful at times. But you want the identity shift. That's number 1. Number 2 is practice rejection as much as you can. Oh, shit. So practicing rejection as much as you can. The way that I've been able to do this so far is through cold outreach. So reaching out to people, reaching out to businesses through Facebook DMs or cold calls, That's the biggest one, cold calls, and cold email. So cold outreach, you will get a lot of rejection coming back to you in that way. And what I've found through cold calls, it has been one of the best ways to create that mental callus around rejection. And if anything over the past year, if you were to tell me anything from a year ago, the only thing I would need to hear is, okay, I've done 102 days in a row of doing some cold calls every day. 102 days in a row of cold calls. That's all I would have needed to hear. So practice rejection as much as you can. That's a nice one. Number 3 is sales is just a word. Sales is just a word. It's just words. And with the word sales, there's such a stigma. There's such a interesting narrative around it. When you think of a sales or a salesperson, it's always this salesy, slimy, trying to get you kind of vibe. Like, I got to get you on a call and pitch you this thing and have it be all structured, and I got to get your money and you got to buy the thing. When it doesn't have to be like that. It's just words. And sales can actually be a way, sales can actually just be your content. You don't even really have to have a sales process where it's directly getting on a call with someone, pitching them, and selling them something. It doesn't have to be like that. Like, what if your content could do a lot of the selling for you? What if people could come across your content and already be sold on what you're doing? Oh. That sounds a lot more natural. But interesting one there. Sales is just a word. I like that. So you want the identity shift. Practice rejection as much as you can. And sales is just a word. I think if I were to tell myself 3 things from a year ago, I think that's pretty solid right there. That's really solid. So the grand thing here, the grand thing that I want to discuss here is the absolute dismantling of traditional frameworks in this experience so far. And it becomes this dismantling of self. Because if you think about it, most of who we are is what we do. And if you have this dismantling take place of the way you always do things and the way you believe things are, then that would be a dismantling of self and your identity. So what do I mean by this exactly? What do I mean by this, and what's a good example? Think of the traditional work schedule. This is a great one. And I'm really grateful to be able to share this here. The traditional work schedule. At first, we're conditioned to work 8 hours per day. That's the norm, the standard. And that's the modern working world. Okay? That's just how it is. Now, if you venture out of that structure and you want to do something on your own, you want to dive into starting a business or making money online or making money on your own some way, there's a flailing that happens. Of uncertainty, lack of structure. If it's your first time doing that, wow. some of the things I've felt regarding that. Uncertainty, lack of structure, lack of stability, like the floor being pulled out from underneath me. In regard to the work schedule, you get this clean slate, like, okay, I'm getting started on my own. This schedule is mine to design, I guess. I don't even know what that means yet. There's some testing involved. Nobody's telling me how many hours to work. That's different. That one's different. So what makes the most sense to me here with this new schedule, new way of doing things? So, you're told by the hustle culture, you're told by the hustle culture to work 12 hours per day. So you start working 12 hours per day. Okay, let's see how that works. You get stressed out. You get stressed out because you've never worked 12-hour days. That's not in your conditioning. That's not familiar. And at some point, after grinding these long days, sometimes you work 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, and you start to question why you're doing this because you're so stressed and it doesn't feel right. You feel frantically stressed and intrinsically frazzled. So you start to see that this work schedule isn't doing it for you. And intuitively you know it's not as important as how you feel at any given moment. It's not. So that brings you down to earth. And you start to learn that when you actually back off, things actually work better. So you can find that middle way that works for you, that nice balance of push-pull, where things work better when you have the proper push with the proper pull. It's like alchemy. It's like magic. So this dismantling of the traditional work schedule here takes place. And there's a restructuring process that happens. And on top of that, along the way here, you remember that the 8-hour work schedule is just made up anyways. So that breaks some things for you. Right? That shatters something. Another thing. Another thing. So you think, okay, interesting. You're gaining some ground there. So how do I want to set up this schedule? What makes the most sense for me? And you feel yourself sort of floating in open water. You're a human just floating in open water. You have one life jacket and just a desire to get to land. But you start trying things, right? And there's some testing that goes involved. And you start making way. And that's how that gets put together. And I can relate that example there. I can relate that example to multiple different areas. And I could talk all day about this. But in my short time here so far in the entrepreneurial world and making a little bit of money online, I felt this vulnerable feeling of just being in open water so many times. And I've learned the best thing to do is just stay with it. For anyone watching, whatever it is, no matter how stressed you feel, first of all, nothing matters more than how you feel right now. But no matter how stressed you feel, just stick with it for another day. You don't even have to just take the day off, right? You don't have to listen to these people telling you to work 12-hour days. You could come across someone online and find out they're working 3-4 hours a day and they look way better off than these other people that are telling you to do the other thing. So what is that? So I've learned the best thing to do when you feel like you're in open water is just stay with it. Just stay in it and see what happens. Hey, bless.